Top student Marcus Chen is framed through a massive cheating scandal by his ruthless academic rival, hoping to take the prestigious Hartwell Prize. The conspiracy involves planting fake evidence and manipulating his own girlfriend. Marcus must use his brilliant mind and forensic investigation skills to confrontation a system designed to expel him. Dive into this high-stakes campus story of betrayal and redemption. Can he expose the premeditated plot before he loses everything? Expect smart twists and satisfying justice. The Perfect Frame. Part 1. The Setup. Marcus Chen had always been 2 steps ahead. At 21, he'd already published 3 papers in academic journals, maintained a perfect 4.0 GPA at Preston University, and was favored to win the Hartwell Prize, a $100,000 scholarship that virtually guaranteed admission to any graduate program in the country. His mind worked like a chess engine, always calculating, always anticipating. But he never saw this coming. The accusation arrived on a Tuesday morning via email from Dean Richardson's office. Please report to my office at 2 p.m. today regarding academic integrity violation AH2847. Marcus read it 3 times, his coffee growing cold in his hand. There had to be a mistake. He'd never cheated in his life. The very concept was anathema to everything he believed in. His roommate, Dev, looked up from his laptop. Everything okay? I don't know, Marcus said slowly. Dean wants to see me about cheating. You? That's insane. It was insane. But as Marcus would soon learn, insanity could be engineered. The walk across campus to the administration building felt surreal. October leaves crunched under his feet. Students laughed and talked around him. Life continuing normally while his world tilted sideways. He arrived at 1 p.m., knocked at exactly 2. Dean Richardson sat behind her desk, her face memorial. To her left sat Professor Whitmore, head of the mathematics department. And to her right, Marcus felt his stomach drop, sat his girlfriend, Amber Liu, and Jason Hardwick. Amber wouldn't meet his eyes. Jason wore an expression of concern that didn't quite reach his cold blue eyes. Mr. Chen, please sit down, Dean Richardson said. Marcus sat, his mind racing through possibilities, outcomes, strategies. There's been some mistake. We received evidence 3 days ago that you obtained advanced copies of the midterm examination for advanced cryptography. The dean interrupted. Do you deny this? Absolutely. I would never. The evidence is substantial, Professor Whitmore said quietly. He'd always liked Marcus, which made the sadness in his voice mark deeper. Your personal laptop was found to contain a file named Crypto Midterm P.PDF, created 4 days before the exam. The metadata shows it was downloaded from my university account. Marcus's energy ran cold. That's impossible. I never accessed your account, and that file doesn't exist on my laptop. It was found during a routine security scan by IT, Jason interjected smoothly. Jason Hardwick, ranked 2nd in their class, Marcus's closest competitor for the Hartwell Prize, and supposedly his friend. I was working with IT on a network security project when they flagged it. I didn't want to believe it either, Marcus. The concern in Jason's voice was perfect. Too perfect. And Ms. Liu, the dean continued, turning to Amber. You reported that Mr. Chen had mentioned having insurance for the exam. Amber finally looked up, and Marcus saw emotion in her eyes. Real emotion. Yes, last week he said he'd make sure nothing could stop him from winning the Hartwell Prize. That he had insurance. I didn't think anything of it until Jason showed me what IT found. I'm so sorry, Marcus, but I can't protect you if you did this. I never said that, Marcus said, his voice hardening. Amber, you know me. This is insane. Is it? Jason leaned forward. Marcus, I've watched you become increasingly obsessed with that prize. The pressure has been enormous. No one would blame you for making one mistake. I didn't make a mistake because I didn't cheat. Marcus stood abruptly. This is a setup. Someone planted that file on my laptop. Who would do that? The dean asked, not unkindly. Marcus looked at Jason, whose expression remained sympathetically concerned. He looked at Amber, who seemed genuinely torn. Without proof, Any accusation would sound like determined deflection. "I don't know," he admitted, "but give me time, and I'll prove it." "The hearing is scheduled for next week," Dean Richardson said. "Until then, you're suspended from classes. If the Academic Integrity Board finds you responsible, you'll be expelled and barred from receiving the Hartwell Prize. I suggest you prepare your defense carefully." Outside the building, Marcus tried to catch Amber's arm. She pulled away. "Don't," she said, her voice showing emotion. "I gave you the chance to be honest in there. I am being honest. Amber, we've been together for 8 months. You know I'd never do this. I thought I knew you. But the evidence, and you've been so distant lately, so stressed. Maybe I never knew you at all." She walked away, leaving Marcus standing alone as students streamed past. Jason emerged from the building moments later. "I really am sorry, man," Jason said. "If there's anything I can do." "Stay away from me," Marcus said quietly. Jason's mask slipped for just a microsecond. Marcus caught it, a flash of satisfaction, quickly suppressed. "I'm trying to help." "No, you're not. I don't know how you did this, but I'm going to find out." "That sounds like a threat." "It's a promise." Part 2. The investigation. Marcus spent that night tearing through his laptop's file system. The corrupted exam file was there, exactly as described, time-stamped 4 days before the test. The metadata showed it had been downloaded from Professor Whitmore's account at 2 a.m. on a night Marcus had been at the library, but alone, with no alibi. Someone had done their homework. Dev watched over his shoulder. "Could someone have physically accessed your laptop? I keep it with me or locked in my room." Marcus pulled up the system logs. "But look at this. There's a gap in the activity log from 2 to 3 a.m. that night. Like someone paused the logging, downloaded the file, then restarted it. Can you prove it was tampered with?" "Not without a forensic expert." Marcus leaned back, thinking. This is sophisticated. They knew exactly how to make it look legitimate, how to time everything perfectly. Jason? Has to be. He's the only one with the means, motive, and opportunity. He's second in line for the Hartwell Prize. He's been working with IT. He'd have the access and knowledge to pull this off. And getting Amber to testify against me? That removes my most credible character witness. But how did he get to her? That was the question that challenged most. Marcus opened his phone and scrolled through his texts with Amber. Their messages had been warm, affectionate. Then, about 10 days ago, her responses had become shorter, cooler. He'd been so buried in preparing for midterms, he hadn't noticed the shift. "I need to talk to her. Really talk to her." She seemed pretty convinced in there. Because someone convinced her. Jason's been laying groundwork, probably feeding her concerns about me, setting up this betrayal narrative. I've been so focused on academics I didn't see it happening. Dev grabbed his coat. "Then let's go. She's probably at the coffee shop. She's always there on Tuesday nights." They found Amber in her usual corner booth at the grind, laptop open. But she wasn't working. She was staring at her screen, thoughtful quietly. Marcus slid into the seat across from her. She started to leave, but he held up his hands. "Please, 5 minutes. That's all I ask. I can't talk to you. The dean said I'm suspended, not that we can't talk. Amber, I love you. You know me." "Really know me? Does any of this actually make sense?" She wavered. "The evidence can be faked, has been faked. Think about it. When did you start doubting me? When Jason told me he was worried about you, about how obsessed you'd become. When was that? About 2 weeks ago. He came to me concerned, as a friend. He said you'd been acting strange, talking about winning at any cost." Marcus kept his voice gentle. "And when did I supposedly tell you I had insurance for the exam?" "Last Tuesday after dinner at—" She stopped. "Wait, we didn't have dinner last Tuesday. You were at the library." "Exactly, because I was preparing for an exam I didn't need to cheat on. Amber, think about every conversation you've had with Jason over the past few weeks. Has he been shaping your perception of me? Planting little seeds of doubt? Amber's eyes widened. He's been very supportive, checking in on me a lot, asking about our relationship. What did you tell him? That you'd been distant, stressed, that I was worried about you. Her hand went to her mouth. Oh my God, I gave him everything he needed to build this narrative. It's not your fault. He's playing a long game, and he's good at it. But I need you to help me. I need you to remember every conversation with Jason, every detail. She grabbed her phone. More than that, I can show you. Part 3, The Counterattack. Amber pulled up her message history with Jason. Marcus photographed each screen, watching a manipulation unfold in real time. Jason had been careful. No explicit lies, just carefully worded questions and observations. Have you noticed Marcus seems more nervous than usual? I saw Marcus leaving the computer science building at 3 a.m. yesterday. Is everything okay with you two? I'm worried about him. The pressure of the Hartwell Prize is focused. Just want to make sure he has support. Each message designed to prime her suspicions, to make the eventual accusation believable. He's smart, Dev muttered, photographing messages over Marcus's shoulder. Never directly accusing, just expressing concern. But here, Amber pointed to a message from 6 days ago. He told me he thought you might be cutting ethical corners, that he'd seen concerning behavior but hoped he was wrong. When IT found that file, everything he'd said suddenly seemed to make sense. Because he planted the file after planting the suspicions. Marcus felt his challenge crystallize into focus. He needed you to be a credible witness against me. What better testimony than a concerned girlfriend who slowly realized her boyfriend was cheating? I'm so sorry, Amber whispered. I should have talked to you first. You're talking to me now. That's what matters. Marcus squeezed her hand, then turned to Dev. We need to prove Jason planted that file, which means we need access to the IT system logs. That's not easy. Security's tight, but not impossible. Marcus pulled up his laptop. Jason's been working on a network security project with IT. That access has to leave a trail. If we can show he had the ability to plant evidence. That's not the same as proving he did it, Amber pointed out. No, but it establishes reasonable doubt, and it gives me time to find actual proof. Marcus started typing rapidly. Jason's clever, but he's also arrogant. He won't expect me to confrontation back effectively, because in his mind I'm already beaten. That's his weakness. Over the next hour, Marcus systematically mapped out Jason's likely tackle strategy. The planted file was the primary evidence, but there would be supporting elements, witnesses who'd seen Marcus acting strangely, perhaps other small pieces of evidence to create a pattern. Jason would have built redundancy into his frame job. We need to talk to Professor Whitmore, Marcus decided, not to plead innocence, but to ask technical questions about how the breach supposedly occurred. Jason had to have accessed the professor's account to make this look real. That might have left traces. Whitmore believed the evidence against you, Dev said doubtfully. He believed it because it looked solid, but he's also a scientist. Present him with contradictory data and he'll investigate. We just need to give him reason to look deeper. They spent the night building their case. Marcus mapped out Jason's schedule, identifying windows when he'd had opportunity to plant evidence. Amber compiled every message showing Jason's manipulation campaign. Dev, a computer science major himself, began analyzing the metadata on the exam file, looking for inconsistencies. At 3 a.m., Dev sat up suddenly. Got something. The file creation timestamp on the exam download? It's wrong. What do you mean? Look at the precision. Timestamps usually include milliseconds, but this one's rounded to the exact second. That's unusual. More importantly, the file's MAC times, modified, accessed, created, are all identical. That almost never happens naturally. When you download a file, there's usually at least a few milliseconds difference between when it's created and when it's first accessed. Marcus leaned in. Which means the timestamp was likely spoofed. Someone used a tool to backdate the file to make it look like it was downloaded 4 days before the exam. A sophisticated someone, but they weren't quite perfect. Can you prove it? Not definitively, without examining the hard drive forensically, which requires getting it approved as evidence. But I can create enough doubt to warrant that examination. That's a start. At 8 a.m., Marcus was waiting outside Professor Whitmore's office. The professor arrived, looking tired. "Mr. Chen, I don't think we should be meeting. I'm not here to protest my innocence, Professor. I'm here to ask about the security of your account. Because if I accessed it, which I didn't, someone else might have too. Your research, your other exams, everything could be compromised." Whitmore paused, key in his lock. "I hadn't considered that. When IT flagged the file on my laptop, did they also audit your account for unauthorized access?" I don't know. "With respect, Professor, that seems like a critical question. If your account was breached, we need to know how, when, and what else might have been taken. The security of the entire department could be at risk." Whitmore studied Marcus for a long moment. "You're suggesting someone else accessed my account and framed you? I'm suggesting that possibility needs to be eliminated before we conclude anything. Science requires eliminating variables, right?" A slight smile. "Very well. Come to my office in 2 hours. I'll have IT run a complete audit of my account access." Part 4. The Unraveling. The IT audit revealed something interesting. Professor Whitmore's account had been accessed from an unusual IP address at 2 a.m. on the night in question, 4 minutes before the supposed download to Marcus's laptop. The access had come from within the university network, specifically from a computer in the IT department's secure lab. Only people with security clearance can access that lab after midnight. The IT administrator, Sarah Chen, explained to Marcus, Whitmore, and Dean Richardson. The entry log shows Jason Hardwick badged in at 2 a.m. and out at 3 a.m. Jason was summoned. He arrived looking concerned, but composed. "I was working on the security audit project," he explained smoothly. "I had permission to be there." "But did you access Professor Whitmew's account?" the dean asked. "Absolutely not. I was running network diagnostics." "The IP address doesn't lie," Sarah said. "Someone in that lab accessed the account." "Then someone else must have been there. The badge system isn't perfect. People tailgate through doors all the time." "I checked," Sarah continued. "Only your badge was registered that night. And there's more. We found evidence of a USB device being connected to that workstation during your session. The temporary files suggest a timestamp manipulation tool was run." Jason's composure cracked slightly. "That's circumstantial. Anyone could have used that computer before or after me." "Not according to the logs," Sarah said. "The tool was downloaded, used, and deleted during your specific session. We recovered it from the backup." Marcus watched Jason recalculate, looking for an exit. But there wasn't one. The evidence was damning. "This is absurd," Jason said. "Why would I frame Marcus?" "The Hartwell Prize," Amber's voice came from the doorway. She entered with a stack of printed messages. "I've documented every conversation where you manipulated me into doubting Marcus. You spent 2 weeks building a case that would make me a credible witness against him. Those are private messages taken out of context. They're a pattern. And before you deny it further, you should know I recorded our conversation last night." Jason's face went pale. "What conversation?" "The one where you came to comfort me, where you said maybe it was better this way, that Marcus was too competitive, too driven, that with him out of the picture, things could be different between us." Amber's disgust was evident. "You basically confirmed you'd set him up, then tried to position yourself as my next boyfriend." "I got every word. You're lying." She pulled out her phone. "Press play." Jason's voice emerged, carefully suggesting that Marcus's downfall might be an opportunity for both of them. He never explicitly confessed, but the implication was clear. He'd known Marcus would be eliminated and had positioned himself to benefit both academically and personally. Dean Richardson's expression had gone from memorial to focused. "Mr. Hardwick, I believe we need to have a very different conversation now. Mr. Chen, you're reinstated, effective immediately, with a formal apology. As for you," she turned to Jason, "you're suspended pending a full investigation into academic dishonesty, computer fraud, and harassment." "You can't prove anything," Jason said, but his voice lacked conviction. "We can prove you accessed Professor Whitmore's account from the secure lab," Sarah said. "We can prove you used timestamp manipulation tools. We can prove you had motive and opportunity." That's enough to warrant a full forensic investigation of your devices. If you framed Mr. Chen, we'll find the evidence. Jason stood, his carefully constructed facade finally crumbling. This isn't over. Actually, Marcus said quietly, it is. You made one critical mistake. What's that? You assumed I'd crumble, focus deeply. That I'd be too thoughtful, too panicked to think clearly. But that's what I do. I think clearly, focused deeply. It's why I'm first in the class. And you're second. Jason's face twisted with challenge. You think you're so much better than everyone. So superior. You deserve this. There it is, Dev said from the corner where he'd been filming on his phone. Full confession of intent. Not smart, man. Jason lunged toward Dev, but campus security, called by Sarah moments earlier, intercepted him at the door. As they led him away, still protesting, Marcus felt exhaustion wash over him. Thank you, he said to Professor Whitmore, for giving me the chance to investigate. I should have known better than to assume guilt without proper investigation, Whitmore replied. I apologize for that. How did you know he'd pause? Dean Richardson asked. He maintained composure through most of the meeting. Because his entire plan was built on a foundation of underestimating people, Marcus explained. He underestimated how well Amber knew me. He underestimated how carefully Dev would examine the evidence. He underestimated how a scientist like Professor Whitmore would respond to questions about methodology. And he definitely underestimated how far he'd expose himself once his plan started failing. Arrogant people always overestimate their ability to improvise focus deeply. Part 5. Resolution. The investigation took another week, but it uncovered the full extent of Jason's scheme. He'd not only planted the exam file, but had also created a series of fake forum posts under Marcus's name, discussing ethical flexibility and doing whatever it takes to win. He'd hacked into Marcus's email to send himself suspicious messages he could discover later. He even planted a thumb drive in Marcus's backpack during a study session. Backup evidence in case the laptop file wasn't enough. It was comprehensive, sophisticated, and ultimately too clever by half. Each layer of deception required access, action, and digital footprints. Once IT knew to look, they found everything. Jason Hardwick was expelled from Preston University. Criminal charges for computer fraud were filed. The scholarship committee for the Hartwell Prize released a statement saying they'd never been closer to awarding it to someone under investigation for framing a competitor. Jason had actually submitted a character statement about Marcus 2 days before the accusation went public, positioning himself as the ethical alternative. Marcus won the Hartwell Prize 3 weeks later. He stood at the podium, looking out at the assembled faculty and students, and spoke not about his academic achievements, but about resilience and truth. I learned something important through this experience, he said. Intelligence without integrity is just cleverness. And cleverness without wisdom leads to exactly the kind of spectacular failure we all witnessed. Being smart means knowing how to solve problems. Being wise means knowing which problems are worth solving, and which works through reveal more about your character than any victory could. Amber squeezed his hand as he returned to his seat. They'd spent long hours rebuilding trust, talking through everything that had happened. She'd apologized repeatedly for doubting him, but Marcus understood. Jason's manipulation had been expertly crafted. You okay? She whispered. Getting there. Still processing how close I came to losing everything. But you didn't. You fought back. We fought back. I couldn't have done this without you, without Dev, without people willing to look beyond the surface. After the ceremony, Professor Whitmore pulled Marcus aside. The department would like to offer you a teaching assistant position for next semester, assuming you're interested. Very interested. Thank you, Professor. There's something else. Jason's actions have raised serious questions about our security protocols and our methods for investigating accusations. Dean Richardson is forming a committee to review and improve our procedures. She wants you on it. Marcus considered. Using my experience to help prevent this from happening to someone else? Exactly. Then yes, absolutely. Walking back across campus that evening, the October sun setting in brilliant orange and gold, Marcus felt the weight of the past weeks beginning to lift. His phone buzzed with congratulations messages from classmates, professors, even some who doubted him initially. Dev met him at their dorm room with pizza and a smile. Saw your speech. Very diplomatic. I'd have called Jason out by name. He's not worth the energy, Marcus said, grabbing a slice. Besides, the best determination is living well and making sure the system that almost failed me gets better. Very mature. When did you get so zen? When I realized that being right isn't enough. You have to be right, prove it, and then make sure the structures that allowed the wrong to happen get fixed. Otherwise, it's just personal victory without lasting change. Look at you, getting philosophical with your pizza. Marcus laughed. Challenge does that to a person. His phone rang. An unknown number. He answered cautiously. Mr. Chen, this is Detective Morrison with the campus police. I'm calling about the criminal case against Jason Hardwick. We found something I thought you should know about. What is it? When we imaged his hard drive, we found evidence he'd been planning this for months. He had files on you, your schedule, your habits, your relationship with Miss Liu. He'd been researching computer forensics, social engineering, even basic psychology texts on manipulation. This wasn't a spur-of-the-moment decision. Marcus felt cold. How long had he been planning it? Since at least last spring, when the Hartwell Prize finalists were announced. 6 months. Jason had spent 6 months plotting Marcus's ruin. Why are you telling me this? Because his lawyer's trying to paint this as a moment of weakness, competitive pressure that led to a bad decision. But the evidence shows premeditation, extensive planning, and calculated malice. If we need you to testify to that effect, would you be willing? Yes, Marcus said without hesitation. People need to understand what he did wasn't just cheating. It was sustained, calculated, attempted ruin of someone's life. That needs consequences. After he hung up, Dev was watching him carefully. You okay? 6 months, Marcus said quietly. He spent 6 months studying me, planning this. Every friendly conversation, every time we studied together. He was gathering intelligence to use against me. That's psychotic. That's competition taken to its extreme. It's what happens when winning becomes the only thing that matters. Marcus sat down heavily. The scary part? If he'd been just a little less thorough, a little less clever, it might have worked. If Amber hadn't recorded that conversation, if Dev hadn't caught the timestamp irregularities, if Professor Whitmore hadn't agreed to audit his account, I'd be expelled right now, and Jason would be accepting the Hartwell Prize in my place. But none of that happened. You won. This time. But how many people lose because they don't have the resources to confrontation back? Because they don't have a computer science roommate who knows how to analyze metadata, or a girlfriend who thinks to record conversations, or a professor willing to question the initial evidence. Hence the committee to improve procedures. Dev pointed out. Right, which is important, but it's not enough. Marcus pulled out his laptop. I'm going to write about this. For the campus paper, maybe for academic journals. When smart people weaponize intelligence, a case study in academic fraud. If nothing else, it'll be a cautionary tale. And a hell of a grad school application essay. Dev added with a grin. Marcus smiled. There is that. Epilogue. 3 months later. The spring semester started with new security protocols in place. All academic misconduct investigations now required forensic analysis before proceeding to hearings. The burden of proof was clarified. Resources were made available for accused students who couldn't afford legal help. Marcus's article had been published in the Journal of Academic Ethics and picked up by several news outlets. He'd done 3 interviews about his experience, each time emphasizing systemic improvements over personal vindication. Jason Hardwick pled guilty to computer fraud charges to avoid trial. He received 2 years probation, community service, and a permanent mark on his record. More importantly, his case became a teaching example in ethics classes at universities across the country. Amber and Marcus were stronger than ever. The crisis had forced them to communicate more honestly, to build trust more deliberately. They studied together most evenings, but now they also talked about their fears, their insecurities, the pressures they each felt. Dev was developing an open-source tool for detecting timestamp manipulation, working with the IT department to build it into standard forensic analysis. And Marcus? He threw himself into the committee work, into his research, into teaching. The experience had changed him, not broken him, but tempered him, like steel in a forge. On a cold February morning, he received an email from a student he didn't know. The subject line read, "Thank you. Dear Marcus," it began, "you don't know me, but I want you to know your story saved my academic career. I was accused of plagiarism last semester. The initial evidence looked damning, and I almost accepted expulsion rather than confrontation. Then I read your article and realized I had to investigate, had to demand proper forensic analysis. Turns out another student had taken my work and submitted it before me, making it look like I'd copied them. The new protocols you helped establish meant the investigation uncovered the truth. I'm still enrolled. I still have my scholarship, and I have you to thank for showing me how to confrontation back intelligently. Thank you for not just surviving your experience, but using it to help others." Marcus read the email 3 times, then forwarded it to Dev and Amber. "This is why it mattered," he wrote in the forwarding message. "This is why working against back was worth it." Amber replied immediately, "One person's vindication becomes another person's salvation. You should be proud." Dev's response was more characteristic. "You're getting soft in your old age. But yeah, this is pretty cool. Pizza tonight to celebrate?" That evening, sitting with his friends, Marcus reflected on how close he'd come to losing everything. How easily Jason's plot might have succeeded. How the margin between justice and injustice sometimes came down to careful attention to detail, willingness to question authority, and friends who believed in you when evidence suggested they shouldn't. "What are you thinking about?" Amber asked. "How lucky I am. How different things could have been." "Luck had less to do with it than you think," she said. "You fought back because that's who you are. You investigated because that's how your mind works. You won because you're smarter than Jason ever was. Not just academically, but in the ways that actually matter. Understanding people, building relationships, staying ethical focused deeply." "She's right," Dev added. "Jason thought intelligence was just processing power. You understand it's also wisdom, character, and knowing when to ask for help. That's why you're heading to graduate school with a prestigious scholarship." And he's doing community service at a food bank. Marcus raised his coffee cup. "To intelligence tempered by wisdom. To justice served cold," Dev countered. "To truth surviving lies," Amber concluded. They clinked cups, 3 friends who'd survived betrayal and emerged stronger. Outside, students hurried through the cold, toward warm buildings and bright futures. Inside, Marcus Chen, once falsely accused, now vindicated, understood that the greatest victory wasn't winning the prize or defeating his rival. It was becoming the kind of person who could weather injustice without becoming bitter, who could confrontation back without losing integrity, who could win without forgetting what it felt like to almost lose everything. That was the real education. That was what would carry him forward into whatever challenges lay ahead. And he was ready. The end. I love making these videos for you. If you liked this story, then please like, subscribe to my channel, and switch on the notifications for more entertaining stories. Please also leave a comment for any story suggestions.